one of the things that what breaks my heart when I was doing the research around this is approximately 200,000 families in the United States go bankrupt each year due to a medical event, even though they have health insurance. So they have health insurance and they're still going bankrupt. 200,000 families every year.
Ready to live at the higher vibrations, where peace, love, joy, and good health are the daily standard? That's what this show is all about. Welcome to Vibe. And here's your host, Robin Openshaw.
Hey everyone, Robin Openshaw here. Welcome back to the Vibe Show. Kind of a special show today. We actually did this in our Take Action for Freedom Insiders Mastermind. So this is a class that I teach every Wednesday night for 3 years now, where we talk about how to protect our own sovereignty, how to invest our assets outside the failing dollar, preparedness topics, a lot of things related to that. Well, this is a class about insurance. Okay, you're aware there's an everything bubble right now. I know that you're probably here because you're already pretty awake to the fact that there's this everything bubble where lots of corruption, lots of money printing, and other shenanigans have us in a situation where most assets are in a bubble. Well, what about insurance? So that's what today's class that I'm sharing with you was about. We got the CEO of Crowd Health on to teach a class and answer the questions of our members. And so I thought you would really enjoy this. It's mostly about health insurance, but I wanted to know what in the heck is going on in the insurance industry. I've probably asked about 20 insurance professionals, what is going on in your industry? Why has insurance gotten so terrible? It's gone from just bad to worse. Like, can we even count on our insurance? So anyway, that's what you're hearing. You're going to hear our Insiders Mastermind class, and I will see you at the end. Hey everyone, Robin Openshaw here. Welcome to your Take Action for Freedom Insiders Mastermind Wednesday night. Tonight we have a special guest. It's the CEO of Crowd Health, Andy Schoonover. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so before I'm going to ask you for what's your backstory, how'd you get into insurance? Towards the end, we'll have you tell us all about Crowd Health and what's so special about it. And really what I'll want you to kind of in the early phase here, tell us about is what in the heck is going on with insurance? Like everywhere I talk to people and they're having crazy experiences with insurance. I haven't even told our students in this mastermind that I was in a car accident 2.5 weeks ago. And the stuff that I'm dealing with insurance, I'm like, wow, this whole insurance industry looks to me like part of the everything bubble. You guys, the reason why I think that this is so important for us to talk about is that all of us are so affected by the insurance industry. None of us can really get away from it. And we were rear-ended by a guy in a Mercedes 2.5 weeks ago. And so my husband and I are both dealing with neck and back pain. We've both seen like 3 chiropractors. And turns out this guy driving a Mercedes had the minimum amount of insurance. So it's a dang good thing it wasn't a worse accident because, it's just going to be, chiropractors and maybe some physical therapy for a while or a long time. I don't know. But I was listening to a New York Times. I don't listen to a ton of mainstream media anymore because they've let us down so hard. But it was a New York Times podcast in this last week. And it was a journalist who was like, what the heck is going on with insurance? And he went out and he was finding all these people who had been dumped by their insurance. And I've been dumped by a couple of insurance policies, no reason given. I keep hearing stories about people getting dumped by their insurance. But this guy went to Iowa and he found all kinds of people who they hadn't been in a storm. They hadn't made a claim. I thought that in case you didn't show up tonight, I would show the New York Times podcast or listen to it. But I'm glad that you did because at the end, they just blame it all on climate change and move on. They didn't really explain how all the problems with insurance are climate change. But tell us, are you have you been in insurance for a long time before Crowd Health, or are you just like a C-suite guy who ended up in insurance? What's your story?
Yeah, I've been in healthcare for about 20 years. I actually sold my last company, and I told myself I would never do healthcare again because it's so corrupt in the way that it works. And so I sold my company, and as such, most of us get our insurance through our employer, and so I didn't have insurance anymore. And so I went and I naively thought that the Affordable Care Act plan was going to be a good option for me, my wife, my two girls. So I went and got one, and it was $1,200 a month. And I joke it worked until I had to use it. My little one, who was one at the time, was having recurring ear infections, and so there's parents on the line here. I'm sure you've dealt with this. And so we went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and she had a perforated eardrum. So she had a hole in her eardrum. And so the ear, nose, and throat doctor said she needed to go get tubes in her ears. So we went to the only place in town that was in network. We can talk about networks later, but the only place in town that was in network to get tubes in her ears, we got that. It was a 15-minute procedure. Few weeks later, we got the bill, and it was $8,000. And I was just like, wow, $8,000 for 15 minutes. Wouldn't we all love that hourly rate? And, I was like, okay, but this is what health insurance is for. And so I wasn't worried too much about it. And then a few weeks after that, my insurance company sent me a nice snail mail that said they were not going to pay for it. It was medically unnecessary. And so they weren't going to get paid for it. And I was like, hold on a second. My daughter has a hole in her eardrum. How is this not medically necessary? Well, I went through 2 appeals processes. And they still said, nope, you're not going to pay for it. And we're not going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it. And I did. I had to stroke an $8,000 check to my local hospital to pay for that procedure. And it was at that point that I realized that, health insurance truly is a scam. And, we can talk about why, in a minute here, but I called my insurance company and basically said, look, if you're not going to pay my bills, I'm not going to pay your bills. And so I quit. And that was in 2000. And I have been uninsured ever since. I say I am delightfully uninsured. And I have built tools over that period of time to help people live outside, off the insurance grid. And be able to viably pay for really large healthcare bills without having health insurance. So, that's ultimately what I'm doing. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about why health insurance is such a scam and why our health care costs are so high, and it just gets more and more egregious. It's actually not that complex. The buyer of healthcare is the health insurance plans. And very few people know that health insurance plans actually want prices to go up because they make more money when the prices are higher. So Obamacare, in the politicians' infinite wisdom, said, health insurance plans, you can only make 15% of the premiums as profit. So if you have $1,000 profit, the health insurance plans can only make $150. These health insurance plans are for-profit entities, so they want to make more money. So guess what? If the premium is higher, they make more money. So if their premium is $1,100, they can make $165 off of you. And it just gets worse and worse. And so actually, insurance plans have an incentive for prices to go up. And then the hospital systems are the sellers of healthcare, and they clearly want the prices to go up. So if you have the buyers of healthcare and the sellers of healthcare both wanting the prices to go up, guess what? The prices are going up. And so it's this frenemy relationship between the hospitals and the insurance plans. They both want the price to go up. They kind of have to make it look like that they want the prices to go down. But what have we seen? Prices have doubled since Obamacare has taken into effect. Was that 13 years ago now? So that's kind of the quick summary of why health insurance is so screwed up. The health insurance company is supposed to be our agent. They're supposed to be out there trying to find us the best prices. But in fact, what they're trying to do is keep prices going up. And so we have a principal agent problem that drives healthcare costs, up and to the right, unfortunately.
This is a group, very alternative minded, very freedom oriented. Mm-hmm. They're not super happy with what they've seen the last 4 years. So knowing that about them.
I'm in your group. I'm in your crew. So I'm right there with you.
Well, I figured. And if you guys are confused that he says he's uninsured, just so you know, when we get to talking about crowd health, it's because it's not technically an insurance company. I think, is why Andy says that.
Correct.
It's crowd-funded. And so we'll talk about how crowd-funded meets a healthier set of people who are probably doing more to take care of their own health and just want the backstop for catastrophes and big events meets Bitcoin. So we'll bring that together.
Exactly.
I don't necessarily understand it as well as I should. So it was definitely something that we needed Andy to come explain. So those of you who are self-insured, or because like I think what I have right now, Christian Ministries, I haven't changed over to you guys yet, but I've been researching it. I don't think Christian Ministries is insurance either. Isn't that crowdfunding?
Yeah, Christian Ministries, some of the health shares are not health insurance either. They're not really crowdfunding. They do everything pretty much the same way as health insurance, except they get a pass because they are, a health share. They're Christian health share, so they get kind of a pass, a regulatory pass. But in essence, they're doing the same thing that health insurance companies are doing, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I went on Facebook and hundreds of people commented, and it was kind of all over the board what people thought of it when I was looking for what I was going to do for insurance, and ended up going with Christian Ministries. But it's just exactly like you said, it's great till you have to use it. And I haven't. And I never have used my health insurance. But if you have like a thing like chiropractic or whatever, I was telling Caroline today, this thing with being rear-ended 2.5 weeks ago, I'm really getting close to just saying, just forget it. I'll pay for my chiropractic. My husband will pay for my chiropractic. It sounds good in theory in Florida that if you are in an accident, your insurance covers you up to $10,000, and it's a no fault state. And then if you continue to have claims against the other party, then their insurance, takes it from there. The guy who rear-ended us driving a Mercedes had $10,000 bodily injury per person, 20,000 max per accident. I was thinking, Caroline was like, well, maybe he has an umbrella policy or whatever. So maybe, I don't know, but I'm like, I don't want to spend a bunch of time chasing this guy. I think I'll be fine anyways. But I'm a little paranoid about it because when I was a teenager, my mother was in a car accident, got rear-ended, but going a lot faster than this guy was going. And it took them, I want to say, 1.5 years, 2 years to settle. And they settled with other insurance for $35,000, which probably seemed like a ton of money to my parents at the time. But my mother and father have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on her injury when she was in her late 30s and was in a car accident. And so, it's just been a little bit stressful because they're like pushing us to sign a settlement. They're trying to get both of us to agree to take $2,000 and go. And I'm like, I haven't even seen my x-rays yet. I don't even know what's going on. And you're wanting us to hurry and sign our rights away. Before we get into crowd health stuff, and if you see me go off camera, it's not that I'm not here. It's that I put my nerdy blue light glasses on, and it makes a super annoying reflective. So if I go off camera, I'm right here. Don't worry. But how about the rest of the insurance industry? In Florida, we've seen so much craziness with flood insurance going through the roof. But it's insurance and taxes, and Floridians were all flooding in 2020. I was one of the refugees to Florida, leaving my crazy state. But there's people now leaving Florida because so many people on a fixed income, and their insurance and their taxes have gone through the roof, right? As the property values have soared, so have the. So what can you tell us about what you're seeing about insurance in general? Because the conclusion of the New York Times is, the interviewer says, so is insurance just going to implode? Is it just the end of insurance? And the guy who had gone on the road and gone out to investigate all these people in Iowa and the Midwest getting canceled by their insurance, not where you'd expect, right? I live on the beach, so people are like, oh, well, that's because you were in 2 hurricanes in 3 weeks. Well, how do you explain Iowa? The guy said, it may not be the end of insurance, but it's the end of insurance as we know it. And he was talking about how right now, the last few years, insurance companies have been paying out $1.25 to $1.50 for every dollar that they are bringing in. So obviously that's not sustainable. Can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective and what you see being in this industry, about other types of insurance?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm not a pro on other insurance. I think healthcare is really my lane, and I tried to stick as close to it as I can. I think that what we're seeing in the other insurance spaces is that one, as you said, the cost of housing is going up. That's partially because we've pumped trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars into the economy, and so inflation has created a situation in which we're all paying for that. And so this is an inflationary issue where the insurance companies have based their prices on historical prices. And so since all the prices have gone up, I mean, I think there were 2 or 3 years there in the middle of COVID where lumber prices were up 70-80% per year, just to get lumber. And so excuse me, if the insurance companies are pricing something at the pre-COVID levels and are now paying post-COVID prices, then they're in a world of hurt. And so that's the issue going on primarily with insurance. The same thing is happening with cars, 2 or 3 years worth of cars and inflation. So I think what we're seeing here is just ultimately inflation. It kind of goes back to, the government is inept in, their fiscal management. And so anytime you print money out, lots and lots and lots of money, we're going to see the impact of that. And so, as they're showing CPI levels now kind of coming down into that 2, 3, 4 range, ultimately what they're doing is they're taking things out of the calculation that are getting really expensive, and to set this in the election year an inflation rate that is more normal. Where I don't know about you all on this call, but I know my food's a lot more expensive, my gas is a lot more expensive, everything is a lot more expensive than it was 3 or 4 years ago. So the 3% inflation rates are bogus, and so unfortunately, these insurance companies are basing some of their pricing off of these CPI or consumer price index numbers, whereas in reality it's significantly more than that. So I think that's where they're getting into trouble. I think the other thing too is they're pulling out of some of the riskier areas. So they're pulling out of the beach areas because of hurricanes. They're pulling out of the Midwest because of tornadoes. And they're not going to blame inflation, because that would put their guy in the heat of this and kind of the cause of some of this. And so they're going to blame it on something else, like climate change, as they fly their private jets to Davos. So, it's one of those things that they want to point the finger at somebody, and it's very rarely the actual root cause of the issue.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of, I think it's 50% of insurance companies in Florida have pulled out of insuring somebody with solar. That one was a shock for me, because I have solar on both my homes. And I still am not entirely
as do
sure
I.
why.
I'm in Texas. Fortunately, I haven't gotten pulled out yet, but we don't get the weather y'all get.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I got canceled. Maybe Caroline remembers, here at this house where my solar is, because I was like, well, maybe the argument is it's on top of your house, and so it makes your roof really expensive to replace, or replacing the solar might be expensive. I don't know, but my solar's out in the yard. It's a big, ugly solar array in the yard. So anyway, it just keeps getting crazier. And saying insurance has always been a scam. I worked in it in the 80s, and it's even worse now, part of the plan. And I can't imagine what it'd be like to work in that industry with people who are super grumpy, who have a claim or are getting canceled or whatever. But I had a tenant in Florida in 2020 who had just bought an Allstate book of business. And he said, and this was before inflation went to 1 month, it was 9.1% in 2022. He said that the Florida fixed income retirees, a lot of them were canceling insurance on their house and just keeping insurance on the roof, which I didn't even know that was a thing. So they're only insuring the roof because I believe that they're required to, especially if they have a mortgage on their home, right? So And more people are going to just canceling their homeowners insurance. I think mine just went up 25%. And I'm like, well, I'm going to pay it for this next year, but I literally might just go to not having insurance at some point. I think a lot of people are getting to that point. So, okay, well, tell us how Crowd Health came to be and what it's all about.
Yeah, as I mentioned, as I recovered from paying this $8,000 for my daughter's surgery, I quit health insurance and started looking at finding ways of paying for healthcare in a different way. One of the things that I realized is that I could actually negotiate with the hospitals on some of these bills. So I was telling this story on Twitter, and somebody reached out to me, an ear, nose, and throat doctor reached out to me and said, "Oh yeah, we do tubes in our office for about," I think she said it was like $1,800, as opposed to $8,000 at the hospital. And so, I could have negotiated that bill down significantly. I could have gone to a different location if I were paying in cash. Ultimately, what I found out is if you pay cash for healthcare expenses, they're significantly less than if you were to get them through your health insurance provider. So, I always say that we as individuals have more negotiating power against hospitals than United Healthcare does. And United Healthcare is the 7th largest company on the planet in terms of revenue. Because United Healthcare,
like, it's kind of the opposite of what you would think or what it would be
exactly
in most industries. I just had a friend say that she was going to find a trauma surgeon, negotiate services in advance for if she's ever, and she's probably half joking. She's I have lots of old therapist friends because I used to be one. And she was probably half joking. She's pretty funny, but because I don't how do you negotiate a surgery in advance when you don't know what parts of you are going to get smashed up, right? But anyways, is that a thing?
It's a thing.
You can individually go direct.
Yeah. And we do it for our members. And so I'll give you a great example. So we had a member in Wisconsin, which is one of the most expensive places on the planet to get healthcare, for a number of reasons. But the primary one is that the government of Wisconsin has decided there can't be any more clinical facilities in Wisconsin without the state's approval. So talk about anti-competitive. And so the hospitals have bought up all the facilities. They own them and now have basically a monopoly in Wisconsin. A guy had a heart procedure that he needed to get done. His local hospital said they would do it for $86,000. And we said, "Hey, can we find another provider for you?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And so we found one in Chicago, which was about 90 minutes away, for $44,000. And then we went and we said, "Oh, let's do a larger search." We found a guy in Oklahoma City who's done more of these procedures than almost anybody in the country that would do it for $20,000. So we flew him and his wife first class to Oklahoma City, put them up in the penthouse suite at the nicest hotel in the city, bought their food for them, and paid them to be there. And the entire surgery was, I think, $26,000 or $27,000 as opposed to $86,000. So,
and this was something you did as Crowd Health for one of your clients.
Yeah, we did this for him. Yeah, we did this for him. Yeah, we have a NICU baby in. I'm not going to say where it is because we're still kind of in the final negotiations. But we have a NICU baby born with Down syndrome. Had in the NICU for I think 3 or 4 weeks. The bill was I think $250,000. It looks like that bill is going to be negotiated down to around $40,000 or $50,000. And so you as individuals have the ability to negotiate. That's about half of what the health insurance plan would pay. So the health insurance plan could probably negotiate it down to 100 to 125, 130, something like that. So we're paying less than half. Our members are paying less than half of what the health insurance plan would pay. So the question then is okay, how do they actually pay for that? That's not a small bill to pay for. Well, what we have is we've got a group of thousands of people who have joined Crowd Health who have said, "Hey, if somebody else in the community gets hurt, I'd like to help." And so in that case, we will go out and ask 500 people for $100 to help this family who had the Down syndrome NICU baby to pay for that. So we'll go to 500 people and they can say yes or no. And if they say yes, then $100 goes from their account to the person who has the NICU baby. And then, we'll keep asking until we are able to get that $50,000 crowdfunded. It takes typically about a week for us to do this. We've done it 10,000 times, and only as of today, 6 of the 10,000 bills have not gotten fully funded. So you can compare that to Obamacare plans where about 18% get denied. So, in this case, to use this, it would be, if we were an Obamacare plan, it would be about 1,800 of those bills would get denied or not paid. In our case, it's 6 of the bills didn't get paid.
So I think you're about 5 years old.
3
years old. You've had 10,000 bills presented to you by members, and you said 6 of the 10,000 have been denied.
6 of the 10,000 weren't fully funded by the community. And I'll tell you why those 6 were not fully funded. When you submit a bill to the community, we get to know 2 pieces of information about you. One is when you were asked, did you say yes? When you were asked to help another person, did you say yes, 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 or did you say no, 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 no? Right? And if you said yes, 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 100% of the time your bill has gotten funded. If you said no, 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 then most of the time your bill doesn't get funded, because if you're not a good member of the community, then it's just human nature that we're not going to help out. Think about your next door neighbor. If he's got a dog that poops on your lawn every day, not a good neighbor. So when he comes over looking for flour or something, you may not have flour for your next door neighbor because he hasn't been a good neighbor. And so, it's this reciprocity that we have as a community to take care of each other. But the really cool thing about this is instead of sending your money to United Healthcare or Blue Cross Blue Shield, you're sending your money directly to another human being to help them. And we had a woman, 9 months ago or something like that, have a miscarriage. And as such, there were some medical expenses for that. So we went out to a bunch of people and we got these responses back. They're like, man, that's a part of my story. Like, I know what this family is going through. Can I actually give her more than $100? And you would never in a million years call United Healthcare and be like, hey, can I pay more for my premium this month? And so you actually feel good about helping another human being this month, and you know exactly where your money is going. And so that's the biggest difference between us and health insurance, is you're actually helping another human being directly with their healthcare, while being free from the health insurance system. Like, that to me is a beautiful thing, and that's why I started the company.
Yeah, I love it, and I want to later get into what it means to be Bitcoin backed. But first, so as I understand it, and this is just going to be like crowd health for dummies here.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Tell me where I'm wrong, but I think as we looked into it, for my husband and me, he's 43, I'm 57. We don't have any pre-existing conditions. I don't even think that's a thing, but it only covers you up to 65. Maybe that's because that's when, is it Medicaid or Medicare kicks in?
It's when Medicare kicks in. So like the government does, they ruin it. And so we can't actually provide service to Medicare people, or we'll get into some regulatory heat.
Oh, that's why. Okay. So for the two of us, it's about $500 a month. And I don't want to say what's covered because I know you're not an insurance company. But so that's like, you're a member of the organization, you're part of this community, you are working with a business that's been run very well and very conservatively. You have staff, I think, but there are things that it actually covers. And then as a member of that community, when you're asked to help the woman with the miscarriage who has a $2,500 DNC she has to have or whatever, and you donate, it's not entirely unselfish, is it? Okay, you're being a good neighbor because you're part of this community. And you hope that one day, if you get in a car accident, that everybody will chip in because crowd health knows whether you're naughty or nice. And so pretty much everything you go out and do asks. Like, are people just getting constantly asked or once a
Once a
month? Or
month.
how's that work? Okay.
We'll only ask you once a month. So we're not flooding you with emails. We just ask you once a month that says, Andy in Texas broke his arm. It was $5,000. We're asking 50 people to help. Would you contribute $100 to Andy? And 98% of the time, people say yes. And so, and then you actually can automate it if you'd like. You can say, hey, any bills that are considered, fair price and it's a good member of the community, you can automatically pay it. So you don't even have to look at it if you don't want to. I like looking at it because I like to see where my money is going, but you can kind of automate that so it just flows through. So we've got probably 70% of the people have it automated. It's just like hey, if it's a green, then pay it. If it's a red, meaning they're either not a good member of the community, or the other one is they went out and they, bought, went to the Mayo Clinic for the flu or something like that, and had an egregious bill. There's only been one of those so far, and it was a woman in Texas who wanted to get a colonoscopy, and so we found them somebody to do it for about $1,000, which is a great price for a colonoscopy, and they could do it in weeks 1, 3, or 4. And the woman absolutely had to have it in week 2, even though it was like $6,000. So she decided, she's like, look, I'm just going to pay $6,000 because I have to have it in week 2. And so we just don't think it's fair for the community to pay $6,000 because it's more convenient for this person to get it, on week 2. And so we just went out to the crowd and said, hey, listen, this is an unfair price for this procedure. And you all can decide. And I think she got it partially funded, but not fully funded. So that's how that works. And, so we just say, like, look, if you're going to get a big procedure, call us so that we can find you a really great, surgeon for a really great price. And, the vast majority of the time people do, and they just love the docs that we're able to find them. So, it's one more step than just throwing your card down and saying my insurance is going to cover it. That's a little bit more work up front to call us. But you know what? Like on the back end, it's way, way easier. I live in Texas. There's 2 things I hate getting in the mail. It's my property taxes and something from my insurance company. Because both of them, I have no idea what it could be. Right. I mean, my insurance bill could be $500, $5,000, or $50,000. I have no idea. Right. And so, and it's impossible to tell. So the fact that we know up front what the bill is going to be because you came to us and we could help you do that, even though it was one more step, it just saves you so much time and money in the long run. And so we're asking people to do that. And, most people are totally fine with that. With that said, your OBGYN, your pediatrician, your primary care doc, we don't care who you go to. Go to whoever you want. There are no networks. So you can go to whoever you want. We just ask for the big ones. You call us so that we can find you, a really good doc at a really good price. So that's where I think the freedom comes is 95% of the time, you go to whoever you want. It's just that 5% when something big happens that we'd like you to call us so that we can walk you through that procedure or whatever. So in the case of an ER, like go to wherever you are, wherever we want to go. You don't call us in the ambulance on the way. You go, and then in the ER, you get the bills afterwards. You submit the bills to us. We will then negotiate with the hospital to get those bills down to a fair price. You don't have to negotiate. We'll do that for you. And then once we have a negotiated price, then we'll go out to the community and say, hey, we got a great price because we negotiated it. Let's get this thing funded for this member. So that's how that works. It's actually, really, really simple. And the great thing is you have a care advocate internally that is your personal care advocate. So you talk to the same person every time. They get to know you. It's not a, call center in India that you can't even understand the person who, they don't understand what your problem is. And so they punch you to another person who punches you to another person. And by, an hour later, you've made no progress. You've got one person internally you talk to every single time. And that's just because I hate call centers. And so I wanted to not have a call center business. So you got a personal care advocate. In addition to that, you have as many virtual care as you want, like virtual primary care, virtual urgent care, talk therapy. So, we give people access to unlimited talk therapy. So we do that through BetterHelp, which I'm sure many of you have seen their advertisements. They actually do a really, really nice job. So, we think this is kind of the way it should be. And we're asking people to dump insurance and kind of see the freedom of being uninsured.
Yeah, good to know. I actually had seen the ads for Better Health or Better Way for a year or two, and I just assumed that they were the flunky therapists or the therapist right out of school. But I have a friend who is taking one of her kids to them and feels like she's getting a good therapist. So you guys have had a good experience with that's what your employee Jason
Very,
told
very
me.
good. Yeah, very good experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So then
And
I thought about
one
it
more
a different
quick thing
way.
is just one more quick thing about the service is we do give you all the big events. We ask you to pay. We don't have deductibles, but we ask you to pay the first $500 of a health event. So if you go to the ER, it's $500. If you break your arm, it's $500. One of the things that what breaks my heart when I was doing the research around this is approximately 200,000 families in the United States go bankrupt each year due to a medical event, even though they have health insurance. So they have health insurance and they're still going bankrupt. 200,000 families every year. And so what we wanted to do is saying, like, look, when you go into the ER or you have something big happen, we don't want you to have to worry about the costs or going bankrupt as a result of this. What we want to do is have you focused on your health. Like what we're seeing is so many people in the kind of legacy healthcare space are putting off care because it's too expensive. And they've got these massive deductibles that they have to pay. And so what we're trying to say is, look, if you've got a health event, everybody should be able to come up with $500. And if you can come up with $500, then the community will take care of you for the rest of it. And so, an ER visit, could cost $20,000. You got the first 500 and we'll submit the rest to the community. The one caveat to that is you get one wellness visit per year that's fully fundable by the community. And you can choose an OBGYN, pediatrics, primary care, dental, or vision visit as that one wellness visit. And that's fully funded by the community. So that's the one thing that doesn't require the $500 initial member commitment.
And no chiropractors or naturopathic doctors, right?
No, you can do naturopathic, a holistic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And chiropractors, if you have a medical injury, then you can use a chiropractor to correct that medical condition. Now, if you want to go to the chiropractor every 2 weeks or whatever to get an adjustment, that's on you. But if there's a medical condition that you have that requires a chiropractor, you can do that. One of the coolest stats that I have that I think blows people away with Crowd Health, and I think this will give you kind of an indication of the members that we have. Anybody have any idea what percentage of babies are born at home in the United States per year? Any guesses? You
Less
can't
than
cheat if you've heard me on another podcast. Say what it is?
Less than 5%?
It's way less than 5%. It's about 1.6%. 1.6% of babies are born at home. With Crowd Health, 40% of babies are born at home. So we've got a group of people who are kind of anti-Western medicine. They want to own their own healthcare. They want to have their babies at home, which I'm fully supportive of. And that's just a group of people that we have. They're a group of people who take care of themselves, take care of their health, and as a result of that, no forced vax. Yeah, there's no forced vax at home. There's no forced vax with Crowd Health. We don't ask you. So yeah, those are the things that are just different about our community. I don't want to subsidize people who aren't taking care of themselves. And that might be triggering to some people, but I'm sorry. Like I take really good care of myself. I want to be in a community of people who take care of themselves, who think about their health care, who don't want to, give their health care to the government to say, hey, you take care of my health care. And these people tend to be healthier. And so about 75% of our funds go to one, babies, or two, injuries. Like these are just people out and about, stuff happens, like it's mountain biking face plants. It's torn ACLs playing pickleball. It's those types of things where I'm happy to pay for that stuff. I'm happy to bring babies into this world. I'm pro baby. And so, those are the things that you're putting your money into, as opposed to, I don't want to get too scandalous on here, but like things that like you wouldn't want to pay for. It's amazing to me if you actually look at your if you look at your plan, you are paying for things that a lot of you probably, if I know a little bit about the crew, aren't going to be in favor of. So you're paying for things that are morally offensive to you, and that's where I'm like, I don't want to pay for that stuff. I don't want to pay for vaccinations. I don't want to pay for gender transitions of 10-year-olds. I don't want to pay for abortions. That's just me. And I don't think anybody else should have to pay for those things. And so, there's a list of things that we won't fund, because I just think it's things that if you do whatever you want with your body, but don't force me to pay for things that I don't want to pay for. And that's the beauty of crowd health.
Those don't seem medically necessary. Even leaving the morality out of it, they're not medically necessary. Whereas I think if your daughter's eardrum's going to rupture and she's screaming and pulling her ear, that is medically necessary.
Yeah, exactly. So we can all differ on the morality of those individual things. They are not medically necessary. I don't think that others should be forced to pay for those things, and that's just our stance on some of those issues. So our members agree with that, and some of them don't, and so this is not for everybody.
Yeah, and I think though, those of you I can see on camera, what do you think? Does it feel better to be asked maybe 100? I think, what's your max? 200 that you might be asked if a lot of people have medical claims?
Yeah, so so we are $135. Let me start over. So it's you actually get invoiced twice a month. Once is $50 per person. That comes to Crowd Health. That pays our bills. But this is very transparent. So we don't want to, transparency is our number one thing. And then we will ask you if you're under 55 for an additional up to $135. So it'd be $185 for if you're under 55. If you're over 55, then we ask you for an additional $270. And if you're a family of 4 or more, we're going to ask you for $405. So if you put those two things together, if you're under 55, it's $185. If you're over 55, it's $320. If you're a family of 4, it's about $600. So it might be a little bit confusing, but that's kind of the basics. If you have a family greater than 4, then it's just $50 more for each member. So if a family of 6 would be $700. But it is significantly less expensive than your typical health insurance without the massive deductibles. So to give you a sense,
those numbers you were giving us are including saying yes to all the asks each month, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's assuming you say yes. And those are the maxes. So in essence, what we do is we will only ask you in that month for the amount we need for our members need to get the bills paid. And so it might be lower than that month. It might be a little bit higher than that month. The numbers I gave you are the maxes. It has typically been between 15 and 20% less than that on a monthly basis because our bills have been so low. We have had some really significant bills over the last couple of months, some NICU babies that were, several $100,000. And so, we did max it out the last 2 months, but it looks like next month we'll go back down. So, it just kind of goes up and down depending upon the how we do, during that month, how the crowd does that month. But you can always budget the max. And if it doesn't, hit the max, then you have a little extra money that month to do with it what you'd like.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask everybody on camera, give me a reaction, a smile, a thumbs up, a thumbs down. Doesn't this feel better to you that you're asked to contribute to your neighbor's healthcare when you're doing fine, but someone else has a tragedy and you get to choose yes or no, including no if maybe you don't have it this month? Like, this is what America used to be. I know that sounds trite, but there's such the principles that we used to have. Sometimes I feel like I look at Russia right now and it just reminds me of how the US used to be in the 1950s. Maybe because they haven't had so much materialism and so much like excess consumption. I don't know, but and maybe I'm
Yeah.
romanticizing Russia, but I just really like that you can say yes or you can say no, and that there's reasons to say yes, and that we just get back in a spirit of giving if you can.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, ultimately what the way that I feel is we've lost that sense of community in our country in many ways. 40 years ago when somebody moved in next door, and this still happens in parts of the country, but you bring cookies to that person because it was your next door neighbor. Now I think we often, and I will raise my hand that I've done this before. I'm like, less concerned about who it is and more concerned about what they bought the house for, because that's an indicator of how much my house is worth. Right. Like that is the problem with with our country right now, is I feel like the government and other entities like insurance companies have gotten in between us and our neighbors to say, hey, you no longer have to worry about your neighbor. We've got this. The government's got this. Whereas back in the day in the agrarian societies, if somebody got hurt, the rest of the community would gather around them and say, hey, I'll plow your field. I'll plant your seeds. I'll take care of your kids. And I'm not asking for a communal, society at all. What I'm saying though is there's a just something ingrained in us, I think, in womb that's like we want to be part of communities. And so I like the fact that these communities, can get together and help each other when they are in trouble. And that's not taking away from your own sovereignty, because I think the best communities are the ones where each person takes personal responsibility over their own stuff. And if something crazy happens, then you've got a group of people who come around you and say, hey, we're here for you. Like that to me feels like the way it should be. And as opposed to forced, which the government does and health insurance companies do, which is forcing you to help somebody else in your own community. That sure as heck doesn't feel quite as good as me, volunteering to help somebody in the community. And I think some of these big structural centralized entities have really taken away our sense of generosity in our society. So we're trying to bring that back.
When I was married the first time for 20 years, the last 5 years, my children's father worked for a government entity. And it was almost like a culture shock because he's an engineer and he had come from the private sector. So now he's working for government and we had like insurance. And I was like, yay, we have insurance. Of course, we never used it because I was like growing our cabbage and making my own sauerkraut and doing what I do. And we never needed it. Luckily, weren't in car accidents or anything. But anyway, the insurance just kept getting more expensive every single year. This government entity had to pay more for its insurance and the benefits got less. And I was watching the kind of people he worked with, and he was having people multiple times going to diabetic comas in a bathroom stall or sitting at their desk. He had somebody die every year that he worked there, just die in a pickup truck. The whole office went through the drive-through for lunch. I think he gained like 60 pounds the first 2 years that he worked at this government entity. There was some sort of groupthink. I don't know. I sort of hash on government workers, and not because I don't think there are good ones, because of course there are. But the government has sort of this clock punching, administrative, done is good enough mentality. That was my experience working for government. I did it too. But I just really saw our health. And this was years ago. This was like 16, 17, 18 years ago that I was just seeing the quality of our health insurance go down while the cost went up. And I remember back then thinking, I want to be in an insurance pool with people who do the kinds of things that I do. Like I exercise every single day and I try to eat right. And I'm willing to maybe not eat the best tasting thing every single meal of the day so that I can be healthy. I eat the thing that's healthier for me. I want to be in an insurance pool with them. And that seems to be what you've accomplished here, which is incredibly exciting. I'm going to take a few questions that have come in our chat, and then I want to have you tell us about where Bitcoin comes in, because this is a group
Yeah, sure.
Who mostly most everybody in here is invested in Bitcoin. Okay.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so people who are healthy, you're going to be paying in for 40% of the women having babies or having their babies at home. They're more educated about health and wellness. They're more willing to make sacrifices or do something like have their babies at home. Gosh, I wish I could. I don't really wish I could go back and have 4 babies again, but if I did, that would be like one of my biggest things that I would do if I had it to do over again, is I would do the home birth. I am fairly certain that my 3rd child, by this time I had woken up about the whole vaccine thing. I'd injured my first 2 children. I am fairly certain they gave my 3rd child the Hep B vaccine in the hospital in her first day of life, even though I told them not to. Like, I didn't really think it through. Like, by then I knew I didn't want the Hep B vaccine or any others for that matter. But then I was like, wait, I'm trapped in this hospital. Later, I would hear stories of nurses who felt like they were saving their babies from their stupid mothers by giving the Hep B vaccine in the hospital. I don't know, maybe like these nurses go their whole careers and don't think about the fact that you get hepatitis B from promiscuous sex and from drug needles, which a newborn baby is at exactly 0 risk for. So, okay. So I see that Andy has answered this by typing, but for those listening, Lori wants to know, how does it work if someone's on an expensive medication? Some medications can be over $5,000 a month now. How are regular monthly expenses paid?
Yeah. So on the medication side, I just put an example in here. One of the things that people don't fully understand is kind of the flow of where the money goes on the medication side, and they have the insurance space, or the medical, and I call it the medical industrial complex, which is pharma, health insurance, hospital systems. They've got all these middlemen that take cuts. On the pharmaceutical side, it's called PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, and those are all the people who are right in the middle between the insurance company and the pharmaceutical companies, and they take a huge chunk of the costs of that pharma. And so what we do is we cut out the PBM and go directly to the pharmaceutical company. And so you can get your drugs directly from them, and you can oftentimes get it at 90% discount or more. So we had a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma case. The drug, I don't know what drug it was. I'm not a doctor, but it was like $40,000 a month. We negotiated that down to $3,000 a month. That $3,000 was sent to the community and fully funded. And praise God that woman with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is doing great. So we've had about a dozen different types of cancer that we've worked with. Almost all of them require some fancy drug that's really, really expensive, and the vast majority of the time we can get those drugs down really significantly by cutting out the middlemen.
Yeah, I don't think most people realize that oncology is the one branch of medicine where the oncologist actually gets a percentage or an override on the chemotherapy. So seriously, spread the word, you guys. That way, so people, when they're told they get a 6-month round of chemo and then it turns into a year and 2 years and 3 years, I'm not saying that every oncologist will just sell you as much chemo as he can possibly get into your body, but I'm saying there is an incentive there. And people should be aware of that. And I mostly talk to people who had no idea, including people who have had cancer for years. So tell people that.
We've had a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. We've had colon cancer. Crazy story in this guy. He went to the hospital because he had kidney stones. And so while they were getting rid of his kidney stones, they saw something in his colon. He went and got a colonoscopy, realized he had colon cancer. It was stage 2. Thankfully, because if he hadn't gotten kidney stones, he probably would be dead. And so I kind of joke with him directly. I said, "You're probably the only guy I know that celebrates having kidney stones." So it's they saved his life. Breast cancer, cervical cancer, uterine cancer, thyroid cancer, breast cancer, all kinds of cancers we've dealt with. Robin, you talked about a car accident. We had a $250,000 car accident that got fully funded. We had a $350,000, long hospital stay as a result of a ruptured appendix that basically blew up all of his organs internally. So this can be used for a little pediatrician visit, or it can be used for a very, very large, bill. And so that's why we're just, so excited about the model.
Yeah, so I had said that it's about $500 for me and John. That was Caroline researching it. Now I'm realizing, listening to Andy, that includes the asks that happen once a month based on the claims that are submitted, or not the claims, but the medical bills. So I think I'm sold. I think I'm ready to do it. I was comparing the price, or the about $500 a month for the two of us, but that's saying yes to all the asks, which I'm sure that we would do. Say yes to all of them. To Christian ministries, but what little actual interaction I've had with Christian ministries in the, 6-7 years that I've been with them, is that you have to pay for the thing and then get them to reimburse you for it. That's not how you work, right? Like, do you pay the bills directly?
Oh yeah, if for the big bills, we will fund those prior to you having those. So we don't expect you to come up with $20,000 to pay a surgery. So yeah, it takes us about a week to get it funded. So, and you can't get a surgeon, scheduled within a week anyway. So, the vast majority of the time, that's never a problem.
Okay. And we have a few questions about, I did mention that over 65, that's when Medicare kicks in. And I asked Andy about it, and we just touched on it briefly, that he said, once the government takes over when you're 65, there's regulatory issues where they can't necessarily provide it. So, but I have people asking more detailed questions, as in, what if I haven't signed up for Medicare, or is there any more to it?
Yes, stay tuned, because we're working through this. It's just a regulatory, landmine field. It's in essence what happens is doctors are so scared they're going to get fined by Medicare, or Medicare withdraw their the doctor's ability to see Medicare patients, that they will not take, many of them will not take Medicare patients cash pay, even though they're not a part of Medicare, because it's hard for the doctors to affirm that they're not a part of Medicare. You can walk in and have Medicare A and B and say, hey, I'm not a part of Medicare, can I pay in cash? And the doctor wouldn't know. And if he accepts cash, he's actually breaking the law. He or she's breaking the law. And so the doctor basically then says, look, we just do not take cash from people over 65. And so that creates a bit of a burden for members over the age of 65. What we are looking at is saying, look, if you have Medicare A and B, then we'll put Crowd Health on top of that for much, much less. So if Medicare doesn't pay for something, then then the Crowd would help out. So we're actually building something like that now. So stay tuned if people here are over 65, because there could be, Medicare supplemental plans are garbage. And so, this could be an alternative to going and getting a Medicare supplement plan. So we're trying to work for it. Clearly it's, a huge market, and there's a definite need there.
Okay, good to know. So we got that, everybody. You can use Crowd Health supplemental to Medicare. It's not necessarily that if you're 65, sorry, you're out. And they're working on it. That's kind of what I got from Jason when I met with him twice before we did this class. Over the course of the last year, I've gotten on the phone with Jason, who's impressive, by the way, represents your company well. We will share a link.
Great.
Yep. We'll share a link to sign up for Crowd Health if you would like to. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I think I'll share it there. We'll share a link to get signed up. I love everything about what you're doing. I think that you're in the black, right? In 3 years.
Yeah, we will be profitable in June. Yeah, so we're right close. So we raised a little bit of money to get started, and it's hard to start something like this, because you don't want to. Nobody wants to be the first person. Nobody wants to be a crowd of one. And now
you're growing by like 400 a month or something, aren't you?
Yeah, 400 or 500 a month, and we're we've got 8,000 people who signed up, and so that's pretty good for 3 years in. One quick thing, Robin, for anybody who's listening or anybody who watches this later, I have set up a promo code the promo code is Robin. Hope that's okay with you, Robin. And
Did you
it's
spell it right?
$99. I spelled it right. I double checked just to make sure. And it's $99 a month for the first 3 months per person. So
Thank you.
if it's two of you, it's $198. And so in essence, what that's going to be is you pay us, each person pays us $50, and then you'll give $49 to somebody else in the community. So that helps out for the first 3 months. And what we're trying to do is like, hey, we know this is a little bit different than the typical way that you do it, but give us a chance. And for $99 a month, you can give it a try. And if you like it, when we think you will, great. If not, then that's okay too. But I would say that if you go to trustpilot.com and put in crowd health, that's where people have been putting their just their experiences with crowd health. Where I think we're at a 4.8 out of 5 in terms of how good we've done for all of our members, and I think it's 210 people have commented on it. And so some of these people are leaving paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. One of the most touching ones was we had a mom who lost her baby, who's in NICU. The baby was in NICU for several weeks, lost her baby, and just felt so loved by the company, the community, that she wrote just a really touching, multi-paragraph, response or review of crowd health. So my wife and I lost the baby at 10 hours after she was born. So we've got just a heart for babies. So we have a lot of babies born with crowd health, which I love.
Well, that's beautiful. I don't think that if you looked at reviews of Blue Cross, Blue Shield, et cetera, that you would see a lot of love. Maybe you
I
would.
think they're 1.6 out of 5. I think is the last time I looked. It was 1.6 out of 5 reviews for I don't remember if that was United or Blue Cross Blue Shield, but it was one of them.
Not good. But Andrea and I, when Andrea's on teaching, we always laugh later and say, Dawn, man, she's so smart. She always asks great questions. So she says, 2,000 extra for the next 5 years. My deductible is 7,000 to 10,000. So if I have one accident, it's a wash.
So what was the math again?
So 2,000 extra. She's doing some rough math based on the figures I've given and the figures you've given. 2,000 extra, compared to what she is paying already for the next 5 years. My deductible now is 7,000 to 10,000. So if I have one accident, it's a wash. Is that right?
Basically, yes, exactly. If you walk into the hospital, it's basically a wash.
Yeah.
And then every event thereafter, if you go in 2 times and it was $10,000, then you'd be $9,500 up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people don't know what their deductible is. And so I would just ask everybody, like, if you join Crowd Health or not, go and look at what your deductible is. Because, a lot of people don't have enough money in the bank to pay for their deductible. A lot of these Obamacare deductibles now, if you have a family of 4, they're like $14,000, $16,000, $18,000, which means that you're paying the insurance company $30,000 to $33,000 per year before the insurance company pays a dime. And that to me is egregious. In this case, you're paying me, Crowd Health, $600 per person per year to take care of you. You're paying your insurance plan $30 some odd thousand before they'll pay $1. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Anne says, I don't do anything with the government or the medical system. I'm 61 and never have and never will unless it's an emergency. I want control for myself. See, that's my thing too. And it's
Amen.
probably why I haven't made the jump yet, because I actually maybe even go a step further in that I'm going to join Crowd Health. Sometimes because I do so much research on something and then I have the person who I think is amazing come on and teach our students. And that's when I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. This is just kind of like the last conversation I needed, the last few questions answered. I actually had it wrong that I thought that there was no chiropractic covered, or naturopathic doctors, naturopathic medical doctors. But I would go a little bit further in that when it comes to paying for health insurance or this, whatever we want to call it, for me, I don't want to pay the big bucks because there's so many people factoring in getting chemo. Because if I get cancer, I'm not going to choose chemo and radiation. And so, like, I know that that's a lot of what inflates it. My chances of diabetes are really low, right? And so the diet between the diabetes and the cancer, that's one thing I almost wish you had, like, a fund for the people who are willing to say, I will opt out of oncology. That is a branch of medicine I do not want. No, thank you. Come get me, Jesus. I'll drink my juice. I'll turn orange like my grandmother did from drinking all the juices. And I'm not saying that that works for everybody. And I'm not criticizing anybody who gets chemo and radiation. It's not for me. Okay. It's not for me. I would be sitting there while the poison went into my veins, like sobbing. I'd be like, I'm poisoning myself. Like, I'd literally mentally, it wouldn't work. Even if you believe that chemotherapy and radiation is effective for cancers, my mind doesn't believe it. So, Lori says, do you ask people to complete a health assessment before you accept someone? Is there a criteria that must be met, or do you accept anyone who applies?
If you are over 240, we do not accept you in. If you are a smoker, we don't accept you in. And so those are the two exclusions.
Okay, 240 for both men and women?
I think it's actually 240 for women, 260 for men.
Okay. We
do make exceptions. We do have some exceptions if you have, we've got a guy who's 6'7" and he's a weightlifter, and so he's got significant muscle mass, and so he's over the limit. So we allowed him in. So we will make exceptions for dense muscly people.
I'm a big strong guy. Okay, so we're going to make an exception for you. We got a bunch of people saying, I'm 64, I'm 65, let me in. So anyway, I'll keep you guys updated if something changes there. I'm going to send an email to Jason and say, hey, will you guys do anything with this 65 plus? Like, maybe a rider is less expensive or something like that. Sorry, not telling you how to run your business. But
no, I think it actually will be significantly less expensive than our under 65 people, because you will have kind of that Medicare threshold and then crowd health on top of that. So yeah, keep a lookout. Somebody asked how would you know? Best place to follow us is on social. So if you're on Facebook or Instagram or something, go to join Crowd Health is our handle on both of those. Come and join us. And we get pretty sassy, pretty silly. It's entertaining, even though you're not a Crowd Health member. And we tells great stories too. So keep a lookout there, and we will definitely announce when we're ready to go with that.
Joincrowdhealth.com. Use the code Robin. Wow, I really look bad tonight, because usually I negotiate some deal, but I didn't know that you could negotiate with Crowd Health. So they just gave you a deal anyway, apparently. Using the coupon code Robin. What is it again? How much for 3 months?
$99 a month per person.
Okay.
So that's about 40% off.
Okay, no Canadians,
or
I'm
significantly,
afraid, right?
or significantly less than that if you're over 55. Yeah, no Canadians yet. I mean, it's government intervention. You actually, well, yeah, you're kind of getting a peek into my pipeline of what my product is going to look like over the next couple of years. But we've had a lot of Canadians reach out to us and say, I'm tired of waiting 6, 9, 12 months to have this surgery. Could you offer us Canadians something so that we can actually have access to good doctors earlier, right? Unfortunately, in Canada, you can't pay doctors in cash. That is a national law. What we are looking to put together is maybe a product that allows Canadians to say, hey, listen, if you've got a big surgery that you have to have, we can get you into the United States to do that surgery, and the crowd can help you with that. That's something that we could probably do, and it wouldn't be that expensive. So we're looking at going internationally probably in 2025.
Hey, good to know.
We have so much demand for international.
I bet. Yeah, I had a friend who the Canadian who was diagnosed with colon cancer, and she was given 9 months before her surgery for colon cancer. And this woman is rich, and she could not get herself a surgery for her colon cancer and had to leave the country to get that done. Then, nobody wants to leave the country to have part of their colon removed because you want to go for follow-up care. What are you going to sit in a hotel for weeks or months? No, nobody likes that. So all doctors will take cash. Okay. So
Yeah.
Geraldine,
we don't have any networks.
Okay. So all doctors take it. All doctors take cash in the US.
Yeah,
Anyway.
in the US, all doctors will take cash. I mean, when I say all, it's 99%. There's a couple of crazy, places like Connecticut, for example, where, a third of the doctors won't take cash. So you might be limited in those places, but Connecticut and Massachusetts are the only two. But if you go in and you say, "Hey, I'm paying in cash," the face on the doctor is like, it lights up. And they're like, "Wow, I get to take cash as opposed to having to bill the insurance company." I mean, the key here is that, again, if you can pay in cash, you get much better rates. And so why is that? On average, a doctor has to have 3 billing people per doctor just to bill health insurance. Okay. So I can rip those 3 people out of that cost structure. Plus, the doctor no longer has to get pre-authorizations. They spend about a day a week of their time fighting with health insurance companies to get paid, to get pre-authorizations for surgeries, all of these things. We give all that time back to the doctor and say, "Hey, you take the time with the patient to get to the root cause of what's going on." And we think that patient's going to get better service, and you get paid at the point of care. And so they give us, give our members way better rates for paying in cash because they don't have to have the expense of billing a health insurance company. So that's the key to what we do. We have doctors calling us every day being like, "Please, will you send us more people? Will you send us more people?" And we're like, we're trying. So doctors love us more than our members love us.
Yeah, that's the bane of their existence. I mean, I'm sure you guys know doctors too, but they'll tell you, I like treating patients. I like doing my science, my craft. I hate all the paperwork or whatever. I mean, I felt that way as a therapist, and that was a long time ago. I was like, I want to do individual therapy and I want to do group therapy. I don't want to have to write about the group therapy longer than I was in the group therapy, right? Exactly. And with doctors, it's even worse. Like I said, I'm considering just foregoing the insurance claim on this car accident and paying for it myself because I'm like, in fact, tomorrow, since I talk to the insurance on both sides like every day, when they call me, I might say, "How can I get out of this faster than this without all these shenanigans?" Like, I don't know. I've been a business owner for so many years that I have low tolerance for administrative baloney. But I think people are getting the mission of this, and maybe that's why your employees we've interacted with are so quality. Is that people are attracted to the mission of this, and we haven't even gotten to the cherry on top being Bitcoin backed. But Kathy's saying, "Are you hiring? Can people work from home? My best friend has lots of experience." You guys hiring?
We hire somebody probably every 2 months, and so yeah, keep an eye out. Again, social media. We announce it on social media. I put the link for our careers page in there, and so we'll grow probably 300% or something like that this year. So we will add a number of people, which will be great, and we're all remote. So we grew up in COVID. We were born in COVID, and we will be remote. I think we've got people from Florida to Alaska, literally.
Yeah. Tell us about being Bitcoin backed. What's that all about?
Yeah, I mean, I look for decentralization in all of my life. If I can hold my assets in something that the government can't control, then I will do that. So me and my family have a significant amount of money and of our net worth in Bitcoin. And so, in essence, what we're doing is we're setting up little mini communities that can fund each other's healthcare expenses. We feel like if there is a true affinity for the people that you're in community with, there's actual behavior change. And so we've got what we call the Bitcoin crowd, which is just Bitcoiners, and they're funding each other's healthcare expenses directly. So it's kind of fun. And we are actually building out currently, and it's actually ready, but for some reasons we can get to if you want to, we're not launching it quite yet, where all of our Bitcoin community members are going to be funding each other over the Lightning Network. So with Bitcoin. And so if you have a healthcare event, instead of asking somebody for a dollar amount, we will ask somebody for a Bitcoin amount. They will then be able to transfer, whatever, 100,000 sats from their account to your account. So then you have enough Bitcoin to then pay the doctor or the hospital in Bitcoin. In essence, what we're trying to do is take a massive chunk of the US economy, and if we can Bitcoinize it, then there's no need for then the government to get involved in that, right? So the more things that I can pay in Bitcoin, the less that the government has kind of vision on what I do with my money. And for most of us, healthcare expenses is a pretty large line item every month for us to pay. So we're going after it. And you'll have your own wallet in our app, and so it's going to be pretty exciting. So that's fun, and we're starting to build a kind of a directory of docs who will accept Bitcoin. So literally, if you have no dollars, will be passing through the system if you don't want them to be. If your hospital doesn't accept Bitcoin, then you can always take your Bitcoin, convert it to dollars, and then pay. Just like it's almost like a Venmo wallet, right? You got all these dollars in your Venmo wallet. You can keep it in your Venmo wallet. You can send it back to your bank account, or I don't think you can pay through your Venmo wallet, but it's kind of like that, right? So a number of different options. Our Bitcoin community is our biggest group of people. I'm a Bitcoiner, and so I've been on all the Bitcoin podcasts. If you listen to any of the Bitcoin podcasts, you probably have seen me on there over the last couple of years, because I've been on a lot of them.
I just heard your ad on there. That's how I learned about Crowd Health, and then I reached out. Yeah, that's how I ended up talking to Jason. So I guess that's probably a good way to get your name out there. I hear a lot of ads, and I actually followed up on yours because I was like, crowdfunding healthcare, yes. Bitcoin backed, even better.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Dawn, there are companies who do this. I met a guy in a mastermind that I was in that I used to fly into Arizona and attend 4 times a year. I could find him, and I can't even remember his last name, but I could find out who that guy is. But she's saying, if we didn't join, could we pay you a fee to negotiate something? So there's companies that do that, but Dawn, they're going to charge you every month, kind of similar. Like they've still got overhead and whatever, but that's kind of their business model, is we're going to get you a much better cash price. So I see you as kind of marrying those things, Andy. Would you agree that you negotiate prices down for cash? And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we actually have attorneys on our end who are negotiating for you. And that's just a part of our monthly fee to do that. So it works great.
Okay, great. So your attorneys probably don't represent the patient directly. You remember how this is a little bit sideways, but did you hear in COVID about how they had these patient advocates that are really a hospital employee, and they would assign them to the family to keep them all quiet and thinking that they had a patient advocate, and really everybody was just getting run through the remdesivir vent scam?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and there were these cases where COVID families of patients would literally kidnap their father, mother, sister from the hospital. One would distract somebody at the front desk. They'd literally run out the back fire escape or whatever. That's kind of a dramatic one. That did happen though. And others who would just make a big scene and be like, we're taking him. We don't want him vented. You vented him late at night. I mean, I was interviewing those people on my podcast, and when I had done 7 of them, I couldn't take it anymore. I could not even take it anymore. I'd cry in all of the interviews. I would have to do a prep interview for 2 hours to even understand their story well enough to interview them. But there were lawyers. Here's my point. There were lawyers for the hospital who were fighting to keep patients and not let families leave with them. and spending sometimes tens of thousands of dollars denying emergency injunctions to families saying, we want our family member out of there. We don't like the care they're getting. We don't want them on remdesivir in event. We said no to it. Or they put DNR in the chart. So I know I'm going on a very old COVID rant. It's because I'm still mad about it. But does Crowd Health, like, would they represent a patient in any of these? Like, that's something you should have later, like in your next phase or down the road, is patient advocacy, because I don't think we've seen the end of the hospital madness. It's only gotten codified through the COVID thing, you know?
Oh, if we had more time, I could tell you crazy hospital stories. Crazy hospital stories. So one of the things that we do when you get your bills, so for an ER, and unfortunately, I was in the ER like 6 months ago. It ended up being nothing, but to give you an example, I was on something like this, and I actually lost the ability to speak. So I thought I was having a stroke. My dad had a stroke, so I thought I was having a stroke. So I went to the ER. It came to that I was just having a bad migraine. And so, they put me in the stroke unit, and the neurologist came and said, "Oh no, you just have a migraine. You can leave." And then 10 minutes later, an occupational therapist and a physical therapist showed up. And they said, No. We actually have to prove that you can leave and still take care of yourself. And I'm like, what? And so they made me put on a pair of socks. They watched me pee. They watched me do a toothbrush, brush my teeth. And I took 20 steps down the hall. And you know how much they charged me for that? 6 15-minute visits at $400 a piece. $2,400 for them to watch me pee, basically. And they're like, "Oh no, we were there for an hour or whatever it was." And my wife was like, "You are not there for an hour. You were there for 10 minutes." And they were able to charge that, and we're fighting that through our attorneys are fighting that. So these things happen all the time, where these hospitals are. The worst one we saw was a $2,500 cup of coffee, decaf, Folgers of all things. It wasn't even like Starbucks or anything. It was a Folgers at a hospital in Michigan. $2,500 for a cup of coffee.
They were starting in 2020. They were basically chasing you around to swab you every 10 minutes because they got hundreds of dollars for every swab. I mean, it was just swab city in every hospital. You could go in there for a panic attack, or you could go in there
swab you.
Yeah. So you're gonna get
the other one is
I
got charged $5,500 for a bag of saline solution. It's salt water. I can go online and I can buy it for $7. I got charged $5,500 for it. I mean, this is the craziness that goes on in our system, and the health insurance plans are kind of like, and it's like and we as the consumers of healthcare are paying for it. And so that's why I get fired up about this, is we got to put a stop to it.
Yeah, I love that you've created this, Andy. I really appreciate your patience with us tonight, answering all our questions.
Oh, this is great. These are great questions.
Yeah, this is a great group of people. I love being with them every Wednesday night. And so I've been really excited to hear what you have to say. I learned a lot. I think we all did. So join Crowd Health. Use the code Robin with a Y. And thank you so much, everyone. And Andrea and I will see you next Wednesday night. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Hey, everyone. Hope that you enjoyed that. That was our Take Action for Freedom Insiders Mastermind. We cover preparedness topics. We cover alternative investing. We go deep about why I and the other teachers are very much invested in Bitcoin and some other select cryptocurrencies. We're not all in on every cryptocurrency out there. There's literally tens of thousands of them at this point. We don't need most of them. It's going to be like the .com bubble. Most of them are going to go to zero. So the reason we have a mastermind is I can't, in a comment on Facebook, tell you what to invest in. Plus, I'm not a financial advisor. So all we do is educate. We educate because the other teachers and I really spend close to full time researching these issues, because we feel like it's nothing less than our future at stake. And the whole economy is moving to the blockchain. And I believe that there's a war for the hearts and minds of the American people. Will we figure it out early enough to figure out how to have the blockchain technology save us? Or will we stay asleep at the wheel, where the people who control the world and all of these bureaucracies in the world use the blockchain to enslave us? So how you can get signed up for Crowd Health, or at least investigate it further, is go to joincrowdhealth.com. It's actually a bit of a surprise for me. I hadn't negotiated with them for a deal for you like I often do if I'm promoting something, a product that I really like. I didn't know that they would give you a deal, but they did. So joincrowdhealth.com, use a coupon code Robin, ROBYN. I think you use all caps. I'm not sure if it matters. But anyway, so if you love the idea that you just heard, I joined it after this class. You can get signed up there. But also, if you want to join our mastermind, our students are way up to speed on all these cryptocurrency projects and blockchain projects, where everything that we know about money and about investing and about assets and about preserving our store of value for the future, we cover all that stuff. If you want to join us in the mastermind, we'll share a link down below to join and get a free month. It's a buy 2 months, get 1 free deal. Plus, as a listener to this podcast, use the coupon code Robin, again, ROBYN, and join the Take Action for Freedom Insiders Mastermind for getting a free month and then also getting another $50 off. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.